budget rolls around. Well, joining me on our panel this morning, the Shadow Disabilities Minister, the Senator Mitch Fifield, joins us from Melbourne. Thanks for your time this morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, David.
And here in the Canberra studio, Labor MP Andrew Leigh. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, David. Very much.
Andrew Leigh, first of all to you, as a former economics professor, how is this surge in iron ore prices actually going to affect that surplus promise?
Well, David, there's two big things that have hit government revenues recently. One is that even, albeit that they've gone up a bit lately, commodity prices have come down. Now, ordinarily, that would also bring the dollar down with it, and that would then assist other firms. Thing is, we're one of the few AAA rated countries around, and so there's a whole lot of other countries which are looking to buy our bonds. So that's meant that the government was hit last year with lower commodity prices and a higher dollar. That knocked $20 billion off projected revenues compared to a few years ago. And so that's why Wayne Swan made the surplus announcement you mentioned.
If you blamed, in part, as you say, falling commodity prices for abandoning the surplus, now that the prices are going up, wouldn't that make a surplus more likely, or why wouldn't it?
It's certainly possible, and the Treasurer last year didn't rule out a surplus, just said that that one was looking unlikely given what's happened to revenues. I mean, let's be clear, if we had the Howard government's tax to GDP ratio, we would easily be making surplus this year. If they'd had our tax to GDP ratio, they would have been in deficit for many of their budgets.
Mitch Fifield, what do you make of these reports this morning? What chances do you give Wayne Swan of achieving a surplus?
Oh, zero. Wayne Swan has not delivered a single surplus budget. The best predictor of future behaviour is past behaviour, and so on Wayne Swan's form, you'd have to say he's in no danger of achieving a budget surplus. But I think it's important to nail the lie at the heart of the government's budget narrative, and that is the government keep telling us that the reason why the budget has been in deficit year after year after year since 2007 is because of revenue write-downs. That is complete garbage. The overwhelming reason why the budget has been in deficit each and every year of this government is because of spending decisions, is because this government has not lived within their means. Revenue has been steadily increasing every year that this government has been in office. It hasn't been increasing by the rate forecast in each budget, but it has been increasing. But the reason the budget is in deficit, let's be clear about this, and has been in deficit every year of this government, is because of spending decisions. You can't hide behind revenue write-downs. That's not the reason.
What's your response then to Andrew Leigh's comment before about the ratio to GDP? If it was the same now as it was under John Howard, the government would easily reach a surplus.
Oh, look, this is another Labor lie that the Howard government was a bigger taxing, bigger spending government than that of Wayne Swan, Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd. It wasn't. There is a consistency, though, here. We do know that today marks Julia Gillard surpassing Kevin Rudd in terms of length of service of Prime Minister. Julia Gillard has achieved $147 billion in net debt. Kevin Rudd got that up to $42 billion, so she's certainly surpassed him. But look, we can't have any truck with this idea that Labor are somehow competent economic managers or competent managers of the budget. The facts make it clear they're not. They're big spenders, they're big taxes, they're not living within their means, and we can expect more debt and deficit.
Well, I mean, David, I'm happy to debate Mitch over political values, but we can't have our own facts. I mean, the tax to GDP ratio now is below the average of the Howard government. That's a simple fact. There have been substantial revenue write-downs. 2/3 of Australia's debt was acquired as a result of revenue write-downs. And sensible people on your side of politics, Mitch, acknowledge that had the Howard government been in office when the global financial crisis hit, those huge revenue write-downs would have caused the Howard government to take on debt. To do otherwise would have been madness. It would have sent people onto the unemployment scrap heap. It would have been Herbert Hoover all over again.
I just got to pick one point up there. Revenue write-downs do not create debt. There's only one thing that creates debt, and that is spending. And I think that goes to show that this government, they don't even get the basics of managing a budget. Revenue write-downs don't create debt. The only thing that creates debt is spending. And this government has increased spending dramatically.
Well, speaking of revenue write-downs, Mitch Fifield, the opposition claimed that the mining tax would badly damage that industry. We're now seeing reports today that the second quarter of this financial year looks like it won't be returning any revenue for the government. So how badly would an industry be damaged if it's actually not paying any tax through this?
Well, it takes a unique form of incompetence to devise of a tax that so far has raised no revenue, probably will raise next to no revenue. That is a unique skill and ability. This government premised this tax on the concept of sharing the benefits of the mining boom. Now, we thought that attacking a booming industry was a funny way to encourage it, but anyway, if you even go on this government's measure, the purpose was to spread the benefits of the mining boom. Well, clearly they've failed because it's raised next to no money. But even though so far it looks as though the mining companies haven't had to pay significant amounts of tax under this arrangement, there still has been the damage to the economy of the issue of sovereign risk, and there's still been damage to the economy in terms of less investment and delayed investment decisions. So let's not kid ourselves that this tax has been a cost-free exercise.
Is the Coalition still committed to scrapping it?
Absolutely.
Andrew Leigh.
Well, David, let's be clear about what we did in this tax shift. Royalties basically are a tax which asks companies to pay a fixed number of dollars for every tonne exported. They pay that whether the world price is low or whether the world price is high. The thing about a profits-based tax is it says when the world price goes up, companies should pay more tax. When the world price goes down, companies should pay less tax. That's why a profits-based tax is a better tax. It's why the Minerals Council of Australia went to the Henry Review calling for a profits-based tax. Now, we might have had some arguments over the design of that, but it's a very unusual position to say that you want to go back to the old inefficient royalties regime instead of a much more sensible profits-based tax. And yes, revenues will be volatile under a profits-based tax. That's the very nature of the beast. It will depend on what's going on with international prices, and it will depend on the phase of investment. So you'd expect companies that are doing a lot of investment to have lower profits because they're offsetting against their revenues, the construction that they're doing. You'd expect too that as those companies finish up their construction phase and move into a production phase of the mining boom, that their profits will be higher and that minerals resource rent tax revenues will be higher again. But it's just a better way of taxing the sector. Even Sarah Palin understood this when she introduced a profits-based tax in Alaska. She's hardly a paragon of the left. It's just an indication that this is the right way of doing mining tax.
Senator Fifield, just picking you up on your previous answer, when will the Coalition scrap the mining tax if it is elected to government this year?
Oh, we'll scrap it as soon as we possibly can, but I've got to put a caveat on that, which is our first item of business, and my first item of business, should I be the manager of government business in the Senate, will be to abolish the carbon tax.
Well, speaking of the mining industry, I just want to get both some comments from you. Some breaking news we had a little earlier this morning that BlueScope has announced that 170 jobs will be axed in mid-March at the Hastings plant in Victoria. Mitch Fifield, that's in your neck of the woods. What's your response to that?
Look, it's always disheartening when you hear of job reductions. It's obviously worst of all for the individuals and the families concerned. I obviously, as a Senator for Victoria, want to take a look at this and see what the background to it is before I go ascribing any rationale as to why this has happened.
Sure, Andrew Leigh, I'm sure you share those sentiments.
I think Mitch has put well my feelings on job losses, that my feelings go out to the families involved. We do need to recognise that every hour of every day, 1,500 people change jobs. And so it's useful to keep this in perspective and remember people who are losing jobs that don't necessarily get publicised like these.
OK, we're going to take a break in a moment, but first I just want to draw your attention to that breaking news you can see at the bottom of your screen there, that the RFS has confirmed that 12 properties have been lost in that fire near Coonabarabran in northwestern New South Wales. We'll have more details on that story at 9 o'clock in our news service there, but for now, a quick break.
How you doing? Things are looking up with this offer. There's no application fee on new Rams home loans throughout January. That saves you $595, and $595 is a lot of dollars. So call 13RAMS or jump online. Rams, simply better.
You're always there to catch them. You'd do anything to protect them. But who would provide a financial safety net for them if you were suddenly no longer there?
With Family Life Cover, we'll be there to provide a lump sum cash benefit to your family if you pass away. Just choose the benefit amount your family would need, starting from $100,000. And your benefit automatically includes a $10,000 advance funeral payment. We've been awarded a 5-star CanStyle rating for outstanding value 3 years running. In fact, premiums for a $100,000 cash payout can be as little as $1.69 per week. And we'll even give you back 10% of your premiums after the first 12 months of your policy. It's easy to apply for cover over the phone with no need for a medical or any paperwork. With real insurance, protecting your family's financial future is simple. So call us now on 1300 303 459 or search Real Life Insurance. We'll be there.
Count the number of batteries you rely on every day. Now multiply it by 7.6 million households. As the demand for battery power increases, plan for a positive future today with your own Battery World franchise.
At the place where Foxtel lives, it's easy to find out what's coming up.
Is there something big coming up that you don't want to miss? With Preview, our e-newsletter, you can tell us what programs you like to watch and we'll tell you when they're on. Foxtel Preview. Go online and sign up today.
January on National Geographic Channel. Let the celebrations begin. In 2013, the National Geographic Society will have been exploring the world for 125 years. We're celebrating every Sunday for the whole year in Explorer Top 125. There's no shortage of fireworks in our new Military Collectors series. In fact, it's a family gun feud when father and son go head-to-head.
You are absolutely out of control.
Expect some friendly fire in Cranmer and Son, Wednesdays at 8:30. We've got teen angst.
I'm out of here.
And a war of the sexes.
These women are going crazy.
In the barnstorming world of an unusual American subculture. The controversial new series, American Colony, The Hutterites, Mondays at 8:30. Celebrate the new year with a bang this January on National Geographic Channel.
It's Nissan's 2012 final clearance, and for 2 weeks only you'll get these great 2012 models at Nissan's lowest prices ever, because we're taking $2,012 off 2012 plate vehicles. But don't wait, stocks are limited.
Welcome back to the program. We're still joined by our political panel, Andrew Leigh and Senator Mitch Fifield. We're going to look at a couple of the issues in the papers this morning. Firstly, a bit of a stuff-up by Centrelink, you could say, where up to 80,000 letters were sent, according to the government, in error to Centrelink recipients, telling single parents to cut up their pension cards. Andrew Leigh, what went wrong here?
I'm not sure what's happened here, David, but it is clearly an error, and what's important is that people who are on those payments know that they can continue using their existing card until a new card arrives in the mail, that those who are eligible for this concession card will maintain it, although their payments will transition. And Centrelink, I understand, is contacting all of those involved. I expect there will be both another letter, but also telephone calls as well. I know Minister Carr's been disappointed by this.
It's caused a lot of grief to a lot of families. Should someone lose their job, be reprimanded over this?
I'm sure Kim Carr will be doing an appropriate investigation. I don't think we want to sort of be swinging the scythe around here, but we do want to make sure that we understand what process was at fault here and that it doesn't happen again. But it's also important that viewers of yours who are in this situation are aware that the letter was sent in error.
Mitch Fifield, what do you make of this?
Well, the social security portfolio, as it used to be known, is in complete disarray. We had Jenny Macklin the other week as the Families Minister putting both her feet in her mouth over the New Start issue, and we now have Kim Carr's Human Services portfolio oversighting some basic administrative incompetence. So there's something very, very wrong at the heart of the Families and Human Services portfolio under this government. But we'll be taking a very close look at this issue at the upcoming Senate estimates. We'll be asking Minister Carr how these letters were issued, who authorised them, whether it was an accurate reflection of developing policy at some point in time. We need to get to the bottom of it. We need to find out who's responsible, and Senate estimates will provide that opportunity.
I just want to get your thoughts on an issue recently, the dole or payments through New Start allowance. Calls from the Greens to increase it to $50 a week. Mitch Fifield, do you support an increase to the New Start allowance?
Well, I think the most important thing when it comes to New Start is doing whatever you can to help people get off New Start and to find a job. The most important thing that a government can do is to create an environment that makes it easier for businesses to create jobs. That's the first and most important thing. If it comes to changes to New Start, you don't want to make any change unless it's actually going to help people get off New Start and into a job. I don't think there's really any call, even within the government, for an across-the-board blanket increase in New Start, simply for the reason that this government couldn't afford it. How can they find the money for it? They're complaining about revenue write-downs. They're saying they can't meet their budget surplus target. So I don't think they're going to be in any hurry to increase
Andrew
New Start.
Leigh, should it go up?
Well, certainly, David, I'm sympathetic to those who argue that the New Start allowance should be higher, but government is about making trade-offs, and so the question is, how do you prioritise that next to, for example, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, a reform that I know Mitch is also passionate about. If revenue was coming in from an unexpected source, then you could certainly consider it. But I think at this stage, as Mitch rightly points out, employment is one of the big gaps between rich and poor. In the top tenth of households, there's 95% of them that have someone employed. In the poorest tenth of households, only 14% have someone employed. So really employment is a big divide, and that's why Australia, keeping all those jobs in the global financial crisis, yes, as a result of taking on some debt, did so much better. Had we not taken on debt, we would have seen an extra 200,000 jobs lost, and I think that would have been a huge hit to the poorest in Australia.
Well, another report this morning in the West Australian newspaper. Kevin Rudd has spoken out about Syria and says that the world should take stronger action and consider arming the rebels in Syria. Australia's current position, or the government's current position, is that we should supply medical aid but not arms. Andrew Leigh, what do you make of this call from Kevin Rudd?
The thing you've seen over the sort of couple of years of this conflict, David, is increasingly outside groups coming in, often with pretty radical agendas. And I suppose the example all of us have in mind is the way in which the CIA backed some of the Mujahideen elements in Afghanistan, only to see those weapons then end up in the hands of people with very extremist agendas. The Syrian opposition is an extraordinarily broad coalition of forces, some ordinary moderate Syrians who just want a better country, but some, frankly, troublemakers who are coming in with extreme hardline agendas. So that's what makes me nervous.
The British Foreign Secretary, William Hague, has said that he'll lobby the EU to lift an arms embargo on Syria.
Well, that's different from supplying arms. So allowing those within the country to purchase their own arms, I guess, is one step. I just don't think this is simple, right? It is obvious that the Assad regime is one of the most awful regimes going around. I've spoken twice in Parliament about the brutal human rights abuses that they've engaged in, as have coalition members, including Joe Hockey.
Mitch Fifield, is Kevin Rudd making mischief here?
Well, it's another example of Kevin Rudd freelancing. I don't think that foreign policy is something that should be determined on the basis of comments by a disgruntled backbencher. These issues should be addressed soberly and seriously by the Foreign Minister and by the Shadow Foreign Minister.
OK. Also this morning, a report in the Daily Telegraph. 100 people were surveyed and not one of them could identify the Shadow frontbencher, the Shadow Minister for Defence, David Johnson. 5 recognised Kevin Andrews and 6 recognised Peter Dutton. These are or would be pretty senior or very senior roles in an Abbott-led government. Should those frontbenchers be a bit more visible, Mitch Fifield?
Look, I don't think there's any direct relationship between profile and the quality of work that a Member of Parliament does. Two of Australia's highest profile politicians are Peter Slipper and Craig Thompson. I don't think anyone would suggest for a moment that they're doing a particularly sterling job, but what matters far more is the experience that someone can bring to a frontbench position. Those colleagues who are mentioned in the article are all former ministers. They're extremely well known in their portfolio areas and they'll do a terrific job as ministers in a Tony Abbott government.
What do you mean by extremely well known in their portfolio areas? Because they're not known on the streets, it seems.
Well, look, if you put my face in front of 100 randomly picked Australians, I would probably fare in a similar fashion. But the work of a shadow minister primarily is to get alongside your stakeholder groups, get alongside the people that you hope to represent in your portfolio, talk to them, listen to their issues, and develop policy. That's the primary responsibility. They're all doing that exceptionally well, and each of us takes every opportunity we can in the Parliament and in the press to hold this government to account.
Andrew Lee, the Labor government is spending a bit of time and attention in this election year on raising the profile of its MPs and ministers through Twitter and Facebook. How important is profile when it comes to the ability to do a certain job?
Well, I think, David, profile essentially comes from policy. I mean, if you're rolling out strong policies in a range of areas, as the Labor frontbench is, then you get to be well known. But if you're running fundamentally a negative small target campaign, as the opposition's been doing, you don't have opportunities for people like Peter Dutton and Kevin Andrews to talk about policy. Poor Peter Dutton hasn't got a question up on health for years in the House, and he hasn't had the opportunity to roll out new policies because the coalition's in this invidious position where it is promised to scrap so many taxes that it doesn't have the revenue to do anything else. It has a huge black hole.
OK, Andrew Lee and Senator Mitch Fifield, thank you both very much